We're now in the midst of the Egyptian exile. Last week, Rashi brings down at the beginning of the exile that the Jewish people are compared to the stars. Why at the beginning of the exile is it important to let us know that the Jewish people are compared to stars? Similarly, when Hashem revealed to Avraham Avinu about the future exiles at the Bris Ben Absorim, the Pasuk says that Hashem took Avraham Avinu out, and Rashi explains out of the galaxy. And Hashem took him closer to the stars. And Hashem told him, count the stars. Again we see that the idea of the Jewish connection to stars is the way to begin the exile, is our hope in the exile. What is it showing us? What do the stars have to do with keeping us going during Golus? All exiles are rooted in the first Egyptian exile. The word Mitzrayim is a Lashon Mitzorim. Mitzorim means borders and limitations. So it seems that the whole concept of Golus, the whole concept of a Jew going into Golus, is the idea of now there are limitations and boundaries built around him. So what does all this mean? The answer is that Paro says, Lo Yodati is Hashem. He denies the Shem Havaya, but he does use the Shem Elokim. The Shem Elokim is a holy name. What is the difference between these two names? We see in the Shem Elokim that lahavdil, a person can take the Shem Elokim. Idol worshippers have taken the Kedosha of the Shem Elokim and they've made it into Elohim. They made it into Elohim Acher, they made it into idol worship. How does the holy Shem Elokim, lahavdil, how can it be dragged down to become idol worship? But the answer to all this is the following. We have to know that spirituality, ruchnius, is Ein Soif, has no borders, has no limits. Tzaddikim, they get involved in a mitzvah, they can't leave the mitzvah. The only thing that takes them out of a mitzvah is the urgency, because the time for the next mitzvah has arrived. But everything about ruchnius, every word of Torah, every mitzvah, every chesed, every smile at a Jew is ruchnius, and therefore it's unlimited. There are Jews that live with this feeling. Those Jews are Yidden that are connected to the Shem Havaya. They live their lives of Shivisi Hashem Lenekdi Summit. They live with the Yudke Vovke. There are other Jews that feel limitations even within their ruchnius. They don't mind a mitzvah as long as it doesn't take too long. They don't mind davening, but they feel they can't wait for davening to end. They're limited. A person should try and strive that when he begins davening, he should feel that the pleasure of tefillah, the only thing to take him away from that is that he has to learn, or he has to do anything else, or he has to go out to work, whatever he has to do. We have to try to do away with this feeling, I did my Mishnayos, I did my Daf HaYomi, I learned my Shulchan Aruch, I learned whatever it is, I'm done for the day, I fulfilled my spiritual quota. That's not a real connection. That's not a connection to the Shem Yudke Vovke. That person is under the influence of the Shem Elokim. It's a holy name. He's learning. But it puts limits and boundaries. The word Elokim is gematria, has the same numerical value as Hateva. Hateva means nature. He's stuck under nature. He's stuck within the realm and the limitations of nature, even whilst he's busy in his Avodas Hashem. This is the difference between Golus and Geula. Golus is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is limitations. The word Mitzrayim is Meitzar Yam. Yam is the sea, the oceans. The oceans are the symbol of no limits. The ocean just washes over. In Baruch Nafshi, David HaMelech talks about how Hashem roars and miraculously the seashore ends, the sea comes to an end. But Yam is a symbol of Ein Soif. Meitzar Yam, Mitzrayim means they place Mitzarim at the Yam itself. This is the Golus Mitzrayim. This is the Golus of all Golias. This is the root of all Golias. When there are limitations and boundaries, even within the Avodas Hashem. And this is what idol worship means. What does idol worship mean? What does Elohim Achera mean? They all connect to spiritual powers, but they connect to spiritual powers which are limited, and they recognize the limitations. It's possible to take the holy Shem of Hashem Elokim and to drag it down and to make it into Elohim Acherim of idol worship. Because even at the stance of Elokim, it means somebody that's drawing ruchnius from that name, but it's coming down to him in a way with limitations. Instead, we have to strive to be part of the Yudke Vovke, and then we are free. That's called redemption. That's called leaving Mitzrayim. That's called leaving the Mitzarim. It's very ironic that we know that in Aleph Beis, there's a concept called At Bash. Aleph interchanges with a Tov, the first with the last letter, a Beis with a Shin, etc. Mem Tzadi, the letters Mem Tzadi and Atbash are Yud K. So a mitzvah is Yud K Vav K. We have to look at a mitzvah in a Yud K Vav K eye, not in an Oikim eye. In other words, the mitzvah has to be a mitzvah that we could basically remain and stay forever on this one mitzvah, because it's never ending. And that's why when we left Egypt, the mitzvah of Leil Pesach is Chalamar Balasaper Reza Meshubach. The more you talk, just talk and talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Where do we find such a concept? Just go on and on and on and on. The answer is because that's called leaving Mitzrayim, leaving these Mitzarim, leaving these borders, leaving these limitations. And that's why the story in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, that those holy Tanoim, Hoyu Mesaprim Kol Oisei Alayla, and the only thing that stopped them is that the Talmidim came and said, the next mitzvah, Mitzvah's Krishma, you must stop. The next mission, the next mitzvah has arrived. But otherwise they would have gone on and on forever. That means leaving Mitzrayim. And therefore this mitzvah of Sippy Yetzias Mitzrayim, leaving Mitzrayim, is a mitzvah where we suddenly feel that we can go on and on. It's never ending. That means that you've left Mitzrayim. That means that you've connected to the mitzvah, to the Yud Kei Vav Kei of the mitzvah. And that connects actually the whole idea of Krishma to mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim. We mention Yetzias Mitzrayim at the end of the parashas of Krishma. What's the connection between leaving Mitzrayim and Krishma? The answer is fascinating. We said in Mitzrayim you're in the Shem Elokim. Even your Ruchnius is limited. Leaving Mitzrayim means you're connecting to Ruchnius that's unlimited. What are we saying in the pasuk Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? We're taking the Elokeinu, we're taking the Shem Elokim, and we're elevating it. We're bringing it into the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Shem Elokim is sandwiched in that pasuk. Shema Yisrael Havaya Elokeinu Havaya. It's sandwiched. We're elevating. We're taking the Shem Elokim, which brings borders and limitations, and we're lifting it to a place where there's no borders and there's no limitations. Wherever you go, it's there. And that's why we say b'shivtecha b'visecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, u'v'shachbecha, u'v'kamecha. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're home, you're on a journey, wherever you are, getting up, going down, lying down, it's always there. It's a Yud Kei Vav Kei. This is Mitzrayim, Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's why we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim in the parashas of Krishma. So with that we can understand why the Yidden are compared to stars, and why it's important to mention the Yidden being compared to stars at the beginning of the exile. The stars, the Sfarim say, represent the Ruchnius, the spiritual shoirish of Klal Yisrael. Some Sfarim say that the stars correspond to our neshamas. Others say correspond to our avodah. The stars are something that are unlimited. Hashem told Avraham Avinu at the Bris Bein Absarim, look at the stars. Im tucha lisboresim. If you can count them, you can't count the stars. Like other psukim say, like the stars that you can't count. The stars represent a certain limitless. There's no end to it. And that's the shorish of a Yid, and that's the shorish of Avodas Hashem, to connect where there's no limits. So Hashem was showing Avraham Avinu at the Bris Bein Absarim, there will be an exile. But before the exile, you should know that we are rooted in the unlimited. We are rooted in the stars. We are rooted in the unlimited. Hashem takes Avraham Avinu up and says, you can't count the stars. You cannot count. You cannot bring Avodas Hashem down to limitations. If you do, you're in Golus. That's Elikim. Pari accepts the Shem Elikim. Its borders, its limits, its Gematria Hateva. But before we go down to Golus, Hashem is telling Avraham Avinu, you got to compare it to the stars. You got to realize that you got to break out. How do you break out of Golus? You break out of Golus by breaking out of the borders and limitations. And that's why the stars at the beginning of Parshas Shmois, Rashi says already at the beginning of the exile, the Yidden are compared to stars. And that's why we have to break out of the limitations and break into feeling all areas of Avodas Hashem as having no limits. And then you've broken out of the Golus. It's very ironic that the Egyptians drowned in the Yam Suf. Yam Suf means, Yam is the oceans are really limitless. Yam Suf with a Soif. In other words, even the Yam comes to a Soif. Even the Yam has its end, has its borders, has its limitations, the way it comes to an end. They drowned in there. The Yidden, the Avodah Mitzrayim was to break out of limitations. Which revelation was revealed to the Yidden when they crossed the sea? When they sang the Shir Sayom, Oz Yosher Moshe, Mikan Remez L'Tchias HaMesim in HaTorah. They saw Tchias HaMesim. What is Tchias HaMesim? Tchias HaMesim begins the eternal, everlasting, never-ending life of Klal Yisrael. when the sea split, when the Yam Suf split, the Egyptians came to their end, and the Yidden had a revelation of a life that never comes to an end. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen as the Goyel. Moshe Rabbeinu is the attribute of Netzach, as we've discussed many times. Chesed, Gvur, Teferes is Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And Netzach and Hoid is Moshe and Aaron. Moshe is the middle of Netzach, eternity. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that breaks through all limitations. He's eternal. He breaks through all limitations. He's the one that takes Klal Yisrael out of Galus. He's the one that brings in the Ruach and the spirit of Nitzchias, the spirit of the Yudke Vovke. And this is the way to get out of Galus. In these weeks, we have to be mechazek ourselves, to push ourselves, and not just to be satisfied. We did our quota. There's no really. I mean, if you can't do more, you can't do more. You've got to be happy with what you can do, and if you can't do more, you can't do more. But if we can do more, and we can learn more, and do more mitzvahs, and reach out to more Yidden, we have to realize that the limitations of feeling I done my quota. That's Golus. That is Golus. That is Golus Mitzrayim. In order to break out, we have to push ourselves beyond, and then we'll be Zocher Metz Hashem to the Gula Shlema and to begin our Nitzchi Stika life. Metz Hashem L'Yom Shekul Shabbos M'Nucha L'Chayelam M'Her B'Yomeinu Amen. Guten Erev Shabbos.